Good afternoon. I'm Tracy Sermon, and I am from UVU. And I'm just going to introduce myself for a second, and then I'll let Dr. Gehring introduce herself. I am a professor in education, the Department of Elementary Education, but I'm also an early childhood coordinator, and I work with pre-service teachers who are working on their early childhood associate degree and help prepare them to be classroom teachers. And Nicole, if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Nicole Gearing. I have laryngitis, so I'm sorry about that. I am a professor in the elementary ed department, and I typically focus on math methods and technology and things of that nature. I also really love to integrate picture books into my lessons.
So today we are going to talk about literature-driven learning, and that um, focuses on hands-on learning in STEM experiences in classrooms. And we do align our goals with the purpose of this conference. We do want to recognize the importance of collaborating and innovating within the early childhood system, and to help support engaging and interesting and hands-on STEM learning for young children. And we're hoping that what we can share today can help build and strengthen communications and connections between families and educators or other agencies that work with young children. We also are hoping to provide practical strategies that support STEM experiences in classrooms, and how we maybe can help give those opportunities to the families that we serve, and to promote lifelong learning practices in classrooms and communities. This is our agenda for today. We will give you a little bit of background about our project and connect that to early childhood principles. We'll address the use of literature for STEM learning with young children, and then we'll share with you our 9 STEM lessons. We'll address meeting core standards for children to practice and reinforce different areas of the content of the core in those early childhood standards. We'll talk a little bit about the availability of the lesson plans and the kits that we have, and just a teeny bit about our School of Education Creative Learning Studio, which is centered on STEM learning experiences for pre-K to maybe grade 12. I'm not sure how high we go, Nicole, but we certainly focus on elementary, and we've got now these early childhood STEM experiences.
So we thought we'd begin with a discussion question. So the question is, what is your STEM experiences with early learners? What are some things you've experienced with preschoolers or early learners? And you can unmute and share, or you can put something in the chat and we can share. I'm going to give you a second to think about that and think about what you might want to share. I don't know, is there a hand raise thing, or you could use the react if you want. I know that a lot of times preschool classrooms don't always have a lot of um, they have some STEM tools and resources, but not a lot. So, okay. I think, Tracy, what do you think? Should we move on to the next slide?
Yeah, let's just. So just Nicole's going to give a little bit of background about how we began working on these STEM activities. But one of the important things that we considered was to base our activities on early childhood principles, and kind of think about what is appropriate for young children and really hands-on and engaged learning opportunities. And so the first consideration that we had is, what do we know about the 3 to 5-year-old? Our
Oh,
activities
it's
are
not
geared
letting me join
towards 3 to 5-year-old kids.
Oh,
So what's age appropriate and what's individually appropriate? And those are both related to developmentally appropriate practice. And so those were things that Nicole and I talked about, like what what could we do with familiar materials and familiar books that could help children explore STEM learning. And then we considered principles about really how children learn best. And the one of the first principles, and this is something I teach my early childhood students, is young children learn best when there's responsive adults that they can engage and that will support them in their learning. And when children are actively involved, they can touch it, they can move it, they can smell it, they can handle it, they can hear it. When they use all of their senses, then they can own that learning. Children learn best when experiences are meaningful, when they can connect it to some prior
Hello.
experience.
Hi.
Are we good? All right. Prior knowledge helps children connect kind of their schema of what they know to new experiences they have, and we want to build meaningful experiences, helping them to connect things that they've interfaced with in their life and how that connects to what we could support them with a STEM experience. And then children learn best when they own the learning, when they can construct, they build their knowledge, they do the testing, they explore it, they make the aha, and we help make those connections with them. So we had these things in mind when we were first talking about preparing these materials. And before we move to the next slide, Nicole, if you could just give just a teeny bit of the background, like what was our impetus for working on these STEM
So this
experiences?
project got started because we have or had created these STEM Fest kits for elementary age students to use in STEM fairs and things around their in their districts or in their schools. And one of the districts asked if we could provide some sets for preschoolers. And so we started thinking, and we wanted it to be more than just for those special nights, but things that families could engage in, teachers could engage in with kids. And one of the things that I found to be the most helpful in helping parents engage in these conversations is adding literature. I'm going to mute myself. Sorry about that. And we do that because children's literature helps children notice and wonder about STEM situations. It creates visual images for them. It helps them talk about and connect to familiar concepts and communicate STEM thinking and vocabulary. Kids love picture books. For example, in a project that I worked in grad school, we talked specifically about how to use picture books kids love to ask questions about what's real and then read nonfiction books to understand the science behind those concepts. For example, in Owl Babies, the owls are up all night. There's opportunity to talk about nocturnal and things like that that kids have questions about, and then you could use nonfiction books and explorations. So that's sort of where this idea came from, to integrate books and STEM challenges for preschoolers and their families or teachers. Okay, so inside of each kit, there's a lesson plan, a book, and non-consumable materials. Now, these are the specific lessons that we created, but we wanted to share today because the idea of using a book and an activity together could be done by anybody with any sets of things that you might already have in your classrooms. You don't necessarily need these books, but we did provide the lesson plans. And most of them, many, not all, some are pretty unique things that you may or may not have, and some are activities or materials that you probably do have around that you could blend with a book to make a deeper experience for students. So we have, these are just the 8 challenges. We tried to integrate lots of different things like sound with our musical instruments, the ramp challenge and talking about inclined planes. Bowling is a common thing that kids do, but it's a great way to introduce counting and subtraction even. And then we have animal habitats and things that kids could build and think about where animals live and why they live there. And then we actually have the B-bots, which are codable bots that are screen free to help kids learn about coding without needing to get onto any kind of device. And then there's some other activities like color fun with a light table and understanding about mixing colors together. So we have 3 that we're going to highlight. We also want, oh, never mind, I got a little ahead of myself. So we have the plans that we wrote. They are challenges. So we started with the materials that you would need. And then there's always a vocabulary, but instead of just putting vocabulary, we called it talk like, and the kind of person that does this activity. So in this one, the ramp challenge, we're an engineer, and these are some words that we want to use as we are engineering our planes. And so I also wanted to highlight that there are different ways that you can use a picture book. So in this particular activity, we're using the picture book. We're exploring first and then using the book to understand what was happening when we explored, and then to try it again by changing the way we have our ramp. But each challenge has the steps for a parent or an older child or a teacher to be able to go through with a kid or a group of children in their class. Tracy?
And I'd like to just share the second half. These are printed out in our kits so that they're usable by the parents or teachers. So the front page has the activity, and then the back page addresses the benefit to kids. And so we kind of have a general statement about benefits. And for this particular one, we're talking about cause and effect, and how that's something that's children have been doing since infancy. And then this idea of letting children conduct the test and be the person who makes a guess and tests it out, and becomes the person who can make conclusions themselves. And then on each lesson, we have this section that has objectives from the Utah State Core Standards for Early Learning. And we decided to have both the 3 and 4-year-old standards addressed. You'll notice that the science one is a bar that's across both, because that is a combined standard for 3 and 4-year-olds. And you'll see here, to plan and carry out an investigation to determine the cause and effect of the speed or direction of an object when a push or pull occurs. So that standard addresses both the 3 and 4-year-olds. I really, really love the lifelong learning practices section of the Utah Core Standards. It has a lot that addresses creativity and kind of innovation and initiative. These ideas that are part of, being a scientist or thinking like a scientist. And so you'll see on the lesson plans, and I have made the lesson plans available to you all in the resource part of this Zoom. I think that if you click on that, you should be able to, you'll have access to all 9 lessons. But you'll be able to see that I've put lifelong learning practices on all of the lessons. They're just really fabulous for addressing this persistence and creativity and innovation even for our youngest learners. And then we've also included a home extension if this was being used in a classroom. What could that classroom teacher do to um, maybe in their newsletter or whatever to support that learning to continue in the home? And so we've tried to include some ideas about learning extensions. So when we're sharing what's going on in our classrooms, we also can encourage parents to continue those learning opportunities in a simplified way. So I'll let you change that slide.
Okay, so the first one is the ramp activity that I already got a little ahead of myself in. Explain that was the lesson plan that we were just looking at, but the idea is to explore what happens with a ramp. There are in the kit actually two little ramps, so you can change the material so that kids can see if I put smooth or rough, that changes the way my incline plane works, but also you can change the level of the plane so we can explore that way. So kids are kind of exploring and then they're reading the book, The Incline Plane, and then they try it again and see if they can apply the vocabulary, but also the concept of what they learned in a story. Well, this isn't really a story, it's a nonfiction book. Using those vocabulary words to teach them.
In this STEM activity, we were looking at life cycle, and really lots and lots of teachers and kids are familiar with the Hungry Caterpillar, and I've had students want to use this book and they want it to be their jumping off point for learning about the life cycle. And then we kind of find, if you read through it, there's lots of stuff in this really fun fiction book that the caterpillar eats things probably caterpillars don't eat. And this particular caterpillar makes a cocoon to turn into a butterfly, and we would actually use different terminology because it's actually a chrysalis. And I've actually used that with the 4-year-olds that used to be in my classroom, and they loved learning the new vocabulary. So lots of people are familiar with the book, and it does open the door for, well, what do you think is real about this story? What do you think might be just kind of from Eric Carle's imagination, and maybe talking about the foods that a caterpillar might eat or what they might not eat, but then having this second book for exploration of factual information about the caterpillar. There are some in our kit, we do have the acrylic samples you'll see in that image that shows a child where all of those, um, the little egg, and then the caterpillar and the chrysalis, and then our butterfly. It has a cute, we decided to put this little inexpensive drawing type. I don't know, Nicole, what they're called. Sorry.
Oh, they're LCD writers, tablets.
It's very inexpensive, but it allows them to explore the things they've looked at in the picture books, talking a little bit about symmetry, because that's in our butterfly life cycle book, and a little template to do a little bit of drawing so they can use the template to create their butterfly, and then talking with them about how we might think about what symmetry is. And if we put something on one side, we put it on the other side, and do the drawing. So it's a great way to explore both fiction and nonfiction with kids, and then see real specimens, and then explore it a little further with their own drawings.
And then we have the B-Bot. And so we used a picture book in this lesson or challenge to introduce a new concept. So coding is something that's probably new to preschoolers, and they may not know or probably don't know how to push the buttons to make the robot do what they want it to. And so the book introduces exactly how or what it means to code something. And then the directions and the challenge help parents or teachers show students how to code the bot to do the things that they want it to do. And in the task, in the challenge, it's very simple. And then we can explore and get more complex in our coding of the B-bot. If you're not familiar with a B-bot, the orange buttons on this bot, it's every time you push this button, it would move forward one like space that it moves the same distance every time. So it moves forward one unit, or it would turn to the left or to the right. And then when you're done telling it, like I want it to go forward 3, you push it forward 3 times, and I want it to turn left, and then I want it to go forward 3 more. You push all of that in, and then you push go, and it does exactly what you just told it to do. And so kids get feedback on that. It also helps with counting and one-to-one correspondence because I have to know how many times I want to push it. So there are all kinds of really great early skills that are being learned through this coding experience for children, and a book that helps us explain the concept.
So again, I just wanted to just revisit the core standards a little bit. This example that you see in the image of the light table, it has just a fabulous book that actually works with the light table. And I don't know if you'd be able to see it very well here because now it doesn't know what to focus on, me or the book. Um, it's called You Are Light by Aaron Becker. And he actually has won a Caldecott for some of his illustrations, but this is kind of poetic, which is a beautiful way to kind of explore light. But then the lights of the cutouts here are actually allow light through to shine on the color. It works fabulous on this light table. And this idea of letting us embed with science other content like art, where we kind of can explore more than one content area at a time, that we get to look at the some of those little color flat pieces, although we do have the building pieces. You can see this is my grandson building on this light table, that they get to layer them and see if when the color changes, because one acrylic colors on top of another color. And then we get to, blend that into an art objective where we are looking at different colors and being able to name colors, and then continue with that once we continue on with other creative art experiences. But then lifelong learning practice shows up again. I love these lifelong learning practices, these idea of using creativity and curiosity, because that's what scientists do. They use their creativity, they use their curiosity, they ask questions, they wonder, and they find out the answers to their questions. And if you have not been looking at lifelong learning practices, I make my students use a lifelong learning practice objective in all of their lesson plans. No matter if we're covering another content area, I want them to look at lifelong learning and find a way to embed that in the learning experience. So if you go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
I was just fine. So you guys, I'd like you to use the chat. And so first I would like you to just think about your classroom, or the books that you've used with children over your experience with young children. What are some books? Because I'm hoping this would help you. If we brainstorm this a little bit, it will help other participants think of books that you've used. So if we could type those into the chat, we'll think about it. We'll give a little brainstorm minute. Books that you've used in your classroom that are a great support or enhance the learning of a STEM concept or idea. So I'll let you think about it for a second. If you would go over to the chat and maybe type the title of the book. Maybe that's what you can get right now. Not, you don't have to have the authors because we're just trying to do this off the top of our head. But I'll just give you all a minute to think of books in your classroom, and let's see if we can share some of these ideas with some of the other participants. I know you probably have some great books in your room. Thank you for putting some ideas. Flat Stanley, Pete the Cat. Pete the Cat. Some of those have some really fun things with counting. Thank you. A Rainbow of My Own, Don Freeman. Oh my gosh, I haven't looked at that book in a long time, Jared. That is I had that book probably 40 years ago in my classroom. Can we think of some other books that either lead to some counting, regrouping with numbers, something animal related? The Little Blue Truck. I don't know how many of you have read the book The Doorbell Rang by Hutchins. Why can't I think of her
I
name?
think it's Pat Hutchinson.
Pat Hutchinson. 10 Black Dots. Thank you, Dixie. Pouch. So, Jared, you're going to have to tell us Pouch. That's one I don't know. Dear Zoo, Dear Farm, and the Mitten. Sequencing the Old Lady. Thank you. There's lots of the old lady who swallowed lots of random things in some of those books. Well, I'm wondering if you guys, I it would be me trying to see if I can make this work, right? I tried it before. I did bring the books from the other lessons that go with it if you'd like me to show the different books that are in our different kits. I don't know, would that be beneficial to you all?
You can just show how we used a few more. Yeah.
So I have a dark camera.
I don't know if I need to stop sharing for you to be able to do that. Hold on.
Um, Probably.
Maybe we should share all our slides and then do that at the end.
You share the books at the end?
Yeah, so we don't have to keep switching back and forth.
Okay, let's do that. Then I can show the books and we'll show you some of the lessons. So
Okay, so I know that a lot of you work for school systems and things, so the idea here, some of the different ways that you can do some things is or that we thought about when we created them. We tried to design plans that are good for lots of different scenarios. And just a little bit about how we developed these ideas. We we came up with concepts that we really wanted to help um, families and teachers talk with children about. That was our main focus to begin with. And so we bought lots of different supplies. And then my kids, I at the time had a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and some neighborhood kids. We would just explore with them. Like I would just set the materials out and see what they did with them and how they engaged with them and the questions that they had. And I'd read them the books that we had, and we talk about the questions they had about the books, and then we came up with some activities to do. And so the ways that these could be used, they could, of course, be used in early childhood classrooms. We've had several different classrooms use them already and give us some feedback so we can improve our plans. We've had some older kids helping younger kids with the activities. So if you're in an elementary school, something that you could do, lots of elementary schools have big buddies. So the big buddies can do these activities with their little buddies in preschool or kindergarten. You could have, if you're having STEM family nights, you can make sure that you have some things for the little kids that come along with their families. Sometimes they get left out and they're stuck trying to do the bigger kid things. And then there's, of course, all of the home learning extensions that parents could do. The idea was that if you did it in a STEM night, then parents can take this and continue the fun at home with their child. Um,
And then I was kind of, this is kind of expanding a little bit of what Nicole said. Um, there's often programs like Head Starts, some daycares, private preschools, where they would sponsor a program. So when these were first designed, it was kind of school district related, but those ideas can extend a little bit more into the community where um, other agencies could be involved in putting together a STEM activity night. And while there could be older materials available for the school age kids, there's also now something for these younger kids. So supporting that as in a community level. One of the things that I have my students do when they write lesson plans and when they do their practicum experience, they do their kind of student teaching experience in a district preschool, is they have to write an extension on their lesson plan for supporting families um, to carry out those activities in the home. And I know Nicole just mentioned that, and this is maybe beyond just the regular school setting, that daycares, preschools, Head Starts could use kits like ours, or the materials that are in your classroom that are probably really similar to ours. Just with the idea with the book, you probably have many of the materials that are in our activity kits. You already have them in your classrooms. I used to create some small take-home kits that were literacy related, and inside the kit had the book and the learning materials, and then they were checked out by my families. And that would be a great idea for programs with pre-K children, to be able to have those things checked out for families to explore and experience that in homes and in daycare. So we'll do the next slide.
Just a few things that we noticed around and about. One of the big things that folks or teachers said we haven't we've done this where teachers did some surveys, and then we did a neighborhood. In my neighborhood, we invited parents and children to come and explore together. But one of the things that everybody collaboratively said was that the book helped them talk about concepts that they didn't really have language to talk about. So they didn't really know how to talk about that STEM or more complex concept in language that their child would understand. And the book connected that bridge for them, which is really important because kids notice these things, but sometimes it's really hard to put what they're noticing in words that they will understand. And books help us do that. One of the other interesting things that people noted was the Bebot activity is a baby codes. One of the classes said kids didn't like the baby coding, but there are very few books that are actually written that do the same thing that that book does with a character that's maybe a little older. So if anybody's a book writer, there's a task for you. What else did we notice? We just noticed also just a lot of kids interacting with the materials in different ways that we didn't think of. I tried to put those things into adding them into the extension activities too, because all of the kids are just much more creative humans than we are by the time we're grown up sometimes, and they think about the world a little bit differently. So the other thing that I would say is to read the book and let kids explore how kids will explore and interject in that way. Tracy?
So some of the things that I noticed with with children interacting with the materials, most of what I've observed were things I did with my children and grandchildren, and then just a little bit in some classrooms. So I want to preface this with our activities work best in classrooms in small groups, like a small group of 5 or 6 kids that might take turns using a ramp or materials. So it's kind of a small group practice.
Is someone coming?
And then we did this with
Oh.
some of my grandkids, where in this picture, this is a grandson who's about 2.5. But the other grandson, who is 4, is looking at the book right now and reading the book about it's a book about building houses. I think that's what it's called.
It's a super cool book. It's about building across the it's about creative buildings around the world. Or
So
the other one, that's a different one.
I didn't pull that one out of the
Oh.
I just pulled this one out. And they're so blurry. So we're gonna do the doc camera in a minute. And so what I noticed was once Henry had read a book, he and his mom built together, but the 2.5-year-old was kind of doing his own thing, and the materials were out and available to him. So while we wrote this for 3 and 4-year-olds, he was already exploring with the materials, and someone else had put this little ramp with the block on the table. And Logan came up to it, and the very first thing he did was find some blocks that would slide down that ramp. It wasn't part of the book, and this isn't the ramp challenge either, which is one of our other lessons. But that's the first thing that he tried, and he would pick up, it was a square block, he would put it at the top, and he'd watch it slide down. So even where we've got younger kids, that this idea that exploration is happening because kids are just learners. They're just absorbing and they're experimenting and they're trying stuff that's in their environment. And I thought it was a really nice small group activity where it was just a couple kids and their parent, or if you're the teacher in the classroom, it's a teacher with a small group of kids where everybody gets a turn, everybody gets to have a chance to explore and to build and to use the materials. The other thing I noticed was how fun it was to engage dads with the learning things. So I had the Bebots at my house, and both of my sons did the activities with their sons. I think some of them were on the earlier slides we had in the beginning of our presentation. My sons would read the books. The kids were interested. I had a 4-year-old in each group, and then one had an older boy. He was totally interested. He was a third grader at the time. Everything that was in the materials he wanted to do too. But it was a great opportunity for a dad to read a book together, talk about what's in the book, and try the activities. The B-Bots totally engaged each of those two families. What I thought was fun was once kids understood what to go forward or to go back, and they could see how it moved one unit, or the size of the B-Bot would move one size of the B-Bot up. That then they started making a plan. They go, well, what's the plan? We're going to get this to get over to dad's shoe, or we're going to get it to turn and go around the couch. What do we have to do to make that happen? And to watch the dad and their sons, because both of my boys have sons, that they were working together trying to figure out, what do we need to do to make this happen? And then my sons would wait, and the kids would try, and then they would figure out, oh my gosh, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? And kids coming up with their own ideas. Well, maybe we need to do this. Maybe we need to do this. So I thought it was a really great way to engage the adult with the child in the learning experience. And if we can help support that with families from our classrooms, that they make connections with their child's learning, it was just a fabulous, positive experience with kids for them to do that. So before we move to our last couple slides, I want to share the lesson plans, because it looks Dixie and Gabriella said yes, they want to see the books. And I do want to show the lesson plans. So maybe that means if I can figure out how to find the lesson plans, are right here. I'm going to share these. So the document is just all together, which means all the lesson plans one is called a ramp challenge. Are you guys all able to see my screen? I'm hoping that it worked okay.
Yeah, yes.
Although now it says that it's maybe Zoom is going to have a problem with me. I don't know. So here's our ramp challenge, and we kind of showed, well, we didn't show that one. We were showing something else. Which cars roll fastest? Maybe this was the first one we addressed. Test, observe. So our second one was musical instruments. Sorry, my pop-ups. And we have our language, so new words that we might want to learn, our books that we used with it, and I'll try my dot camera in a second. And then ideas of how to carry out the activities. And I have a lot of core standards that children can practice and be reinforced. So some of them, we might already be doing this with kids, and this new activity could be a way to reinforce an objective that children are already learning in your classroom, and they get more reinforcement and more practice towards that objective. Our bowling activity, Mitchell Goes Bowling. There were some other bowling books. This one is kind of interesting. It's an older title, so we kind of had to search for it on Amazon, but we kind of like the storyline for this. And this goes into some ideas about how to play the game, and some questions that we would ask children after reading the book to help them kind of think about it before they set them up, and giving them an opportunity to try an experiment with the pens. And we've got some science and some math and some lifelong learning practice, and then an extension in the home. And this is stuff in fact, this extension is something that I've done with my, in my classroom in the past, where we took
small water bottles or soda bottles and fill them up with, it says water rice. I think I used sand in mine, so they had some weight to them. And we kind of created our own classroom set of bowling pins. And then we were always practicing with different kinds of balls. So it would be easy to give parents some good ideas to create something that wouldn't cost them any money really, to create a learning experience in the home.
Hey, Tracy,
You
there are
bet.
also all things that if people didn't have that particular material, like they don't have bowling pins, they could do this instead in
Yes,
all of these
that's what I
activities.
was trying to show for our parent suggestion. I always am trying
Yeah.
to find a way that they wouldn't have to spend money.
Right,
And
but the
oh,
teachers
right,
could
the
also
teachers
use it.
too. Yes, totally. So a great way for teachers. Yeah, I don't have a nice set in my classroom. So what could I do to adopt? A home extension helps that. With our animal habitats, we found two really cute books about Arctic animals and rainforest animals. And then some of the magnet tiles that maybe a lot of you have in your classrooms that are really fun with kids, but there's some animal sets that go with that. And these are two beautiful books to look at and explore and talk about. And after, I would maybe even split this into two different learning experiences where we just brought out the one set of the Arctic animals, explored it, talked about it, and then looked to see, well, what kinds of things are in this magnet tile set that could be used for these animals, and they kind of build their own habitat for them. And we just had this idea for making things out of, craft supplies that people might have at home. Then the bee-bots, I have looked online. The bee-bots that we have in our kits are, I think they're around $100 each. Is that right, Nicole?
That sounds about
I
right.
think they're
There
about
are
100.
also there is a cheaper one. It's called a Code and Go mouse. The difference is that the Code and Go mouse uses batteries and the Bee-Bot is rechargeable.
It's chargeable. You can charge it in with the USB. When I looked them online, I could find I don't know if it was the mouse, but it was around $30 for a small coatable thing that just went forward and back. So this has a little bit more directions that parents might need, but we found that we could explore science and math and a couple lifelong learning objectives while we used what we kind of felt like is an appropriate a digital experience for kids that wasn't a screen. The Color Fun experience is obviously more fun with the light table because the book works so well with that. I've had a light table in my classroom even back like 35 years ago. It's different. The light tables we are using with this kit are the small tabletop light tables instead of a standing light table, which is what I had in my classroom. So they can be used with one or two children at a time on the tabletop ones. But it is a really fun way to explore colors and light with kids. Lesson 7, we talked a little bit already about the butterfly life cycle. And I'm going to move to the building blocks, which is what my little grandson was playing with. How to build a house, which is the one that we have is by Gail Gibbons. And I guess maybe there's another one in our box and I didn't pull that one out. Most classrooms have building blocks. Our set has a miniature set of building blocks, a toddler size, so that it's portable, but this activity works with any block set you might have in your classroom. And with blocks, blocks are so versatile and so fabulous. They should be in every classroom. And I just picked the science and math and lifelong learning practices that can happen with block play, but I could probably get something from every core in the early childhood standards and connect it to something in block play. Lots of great learning happens when we use blocks. And our last one is a balancing with a scale, and it's a really cute book about balancing with some little animals and moving up and down on a scale. The little board book that we have, and I think there's a second book in our kit too, isn't there?
I don't think so for that one.
Not for this one.
Funny
This
story
is-
about this one is that my kids randomly picked it up from the library
They randomly.
one day. Yeah, we just go through the
So-
library and they tear out all the books and they came out with this one and I thought, oh, this would be fun.
So obviously it's blurry. It shows it backwards. Sorry, I don't know how to get my camera to focus on that. But it is by Ellen Stoll Walsh, and it's in beautiful paper cuts. I love paper collage artists in picture books, and the cute little animals that are on the scale trying to balance it, who gets on what end, and then we have some little animals and a scale in for them to kind of balance which side has more and less, and it's heavier, what happens when we make some changes, and it really connects well with this picture book. So, and that has quite a few objectives too. So I am going to stop sharing. And I think that we are running out of time. We did any of our participants, did you look in the what is it called? The resource tab and see if you can see our lesson plans? Because I loaded them the other day and I just want to be sure that they're available to you. I know it's on, well, let's see.
Yeah, they said in the chat they've got them.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you. Well, we need to wrap up. Thank
Okay.
Sandra for popping that in on the mouse is cheaper and they work good with Smions. Thank you for
I personally like the mouse better too. But we were trying to make these specific kits sustainable, but the mouse and the Beba are completely interchangeable. So if you had a mouse, you could definitely do that. The mouse also comes with these little track tiles that it moves one tile for each move, and that is super helpful for young children to understand how they're touching the button one time moves it one tile at a time. The coding, the Bebot also comes with a little map, but the tiles are, I love them. They're very helpful. All of these things were funded through our, and this whole idea was funded through our Creative Learning Studio. We work on trying to promote engagement in STEM education through pre-service teacher education, professional learning, in-service learning, curriculum development. And we do have a lending library. So these kits are available through our EVU library. We're working to try the Micro STEM Fest kits are available in multiple locations, working on some grants to get these available in multiple locations so people can use them in STEM nights and different activities within their school, just like they would those other kits. This is just a picture of our lending library. If you are interested in some other technology, we have lots of different things that you can check out and borrow. The link is on the last is on this slide. You can click on that link and find some things. You can also always email Tracy or I or Sarah, who is in charge of all of the lending there. But again, you don't. We have made the plans available so you can use them with the materials that you maybe already have in your classroom.
So
Tracy, have anything you want to add?
Thank you for participating with us today. I don't know if you guys have any questions about any of our lessons or anything about checking things out. The advantage of people who live in Utah County is that if you're checking something out, you would have to come by. Our Creative Learning Studio is in our School of Education building, and our checkout materials are in a trailer behind that. And Sarah, who is our coordinator in that, she helps get things out for people. You'd have to come pick it up. They're free to borrow and use in classrooms. But we know that that's not accessible to everyone. And right now we don't have them in other facilities, but there are other places around the state that have other STEM materials from our creative studio that are available. These aren't yet, but we're hoping that our lesson plans give you great ideas to think about what you could use to adapt from the materials that you have in your classroom to help connect children to engaging, fun, interesting, hands-on STEM things and make connections with books in your classroom. So your comment is, I checked on the resources tab and can't find the info you share.
Tracy, we could also email anybody that is having trouble.
Resources. It says no documents available. You are correct. Well, I thought, Jared, I thought I put that on there the other day, so maybe I did not do it correctly.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh, we'll check and make sure that the resources are available tied to this this session.
Well, if I try to figure out how to put it in the chat, would that work? I am not sure if I would.
Okay.
Let's see, are they available on the UBU link that was on the last slide?
They're not.
They're not.
I just
Okay.
had a PDF and I
Yes,
thought that
okay.
I went into
Says that UBTN
Zoom
server.
correctly and put it in
Yes.
as a resource, but it
Okay,
doesn't.
that it should be there. I will check. If not, then I'll make sure that it gets added.
Okay, and if you would just let me know, I'll send it to you, and if you would pop it
Okay.
in for me. Yes,
Okay.
you guys, we totally
And
want to
so-
share these with you. Sorry, I didn't do it right, I guess. Yeah, Lori says she can't get them either. I just checked in the resource tab myself, and under you should be able to click on documents and see that, and it wasn't there. If you go on the session tab and click on your session at the bottom, there is a reference that you can download. But this outside of this, so Dixie, are you talking about not when we're in this Zoom meeting, but outside of this meeting?
Yes, I just checked on the if you click on this session in the lobby in the list of sessions, you scroll down. There's a way to download the PDF. It's on the bottom left-hand side of the screen.
So
Yes, that's where I
hopefully-
was talking about down there.
Okay.
And did you not see it there, or you did?
It's there because I've
Oh.
downloaded it already. It's got all your
Okay.
lesson plans and everything there.
Okay,
Okay.
Tracy, if
gotcha.
you, I found it in here too. If you send me that doc that you have, I can pop it in this other place too that they're looking.
Well,
We
Jared,
send it in like
there.
Teams.
So it looks like we just have 2 minutes left. I don't know if you guys have any questions or comments.
Just
We
quick comment. I just thank you very much for highlighting the lifelong learning practices standards. We
I love
were
them.
very intentional in drafting those and got some very positive feedback. I would love to hear from as many people as possible about how you implement activities and lessons that help develop the lifelong learning practices skills. Because really what we do in early education is we're laying the foundation for lifelong learning. So those executive functioning skills are the foundation for later literacy learning, mathematical learning, the creativity, curiosity, persistence, all of those lifelong learning practices skills are really what it's all about in the very early years. So thank you again for including those.
All right. Well, that's what we have. Thank you all for joining with us today. You're more than welcome to email either Nicole or I at our emails at UVU and answer any questions or maybe point you in the direction of something you're looking for. But thank you all for attending today.
Thank you.